We want to think about the presentation as a story. Now, when we were kids, we loved stories, right? If somebody said, "Once upon a time," you got all comfy and snuggly in your bed or sitting in the big comfy chair, maybe with your blanket, maybe with your teddy bear. "Oh, tell me a story, once upon a time." Right? We loved stories. Kids love stories. What happens as we get older? Yeah, we don't like stories so much anymore because that's for kids. Well, maybe we watch soap operas, or maybe we watch medical dramas on TV, or we watch reality shows because we're connected to those stories in some way. But in business, we forget about stories and we think, well, this is business, this is serious. You wear serious clothes and you put on serious face and you go for serious body language, and we have seriously bad slides with lots of serious bullet points. But you know what? Deep down inside, that kid with the blanket and the teddy bear still likes to hear stories. So stories aren't childish. Yes, they work for kids, but they also work for adults. A lot of cultures around the world transfer knowledge through stories. In our families, we transfer knowledge and tell stories about great-grandma or crazy Uncle Al or your mom before she got married, right? We tell stories. That's how we remember information. So I want to encourage you to try out storytelling. Now, you don't have to start once upon a time, though that would get your audience's attention. I guarantee you, if you do that at your next project meeting, in front of your executive sponsor, say, "Once upon a time, there was a project manager named Gilda, and it was a short career as a project manager," but it was nice. So you don't have to start out once upon a time, but you have to think about your presentation as a story. So if we take the elements of storytelling and make the language business appropriate, you can tell the story of your project. Why it's important, why it's useful, how it's going to solve this conflict that's there, how it's going to make life better, right? And then you conclude. So you've got your introduction, you tell them what you're going to tell them, you introduce your message, let them know how long you're going to speak, how long the story is going to go on. The body is where you have your supporting points, maybe talking about some of the characters, how we're going to resolve this conflict. And then your conclusion wraps it all up neatly with a bow. Here's what I told you. Here's a reminder of my points. Here's one last restatement of my message. And they lived happily ever after. So I challenge you, the next time you have to give a presentation, think of it like a story. Because people respond well to that setup. They respond well to that outline. And also, tell real stories if you can. So the idea of crafting a story, a real story, of how a user might be impacted, right? Of how somebody came up with a novel solution, of how you solved a problem. You have to practice it because you don't want to go on and you need to make sure it's relevant to your message. But if you told a real story, people will remember that. So I challenge you to think about your presentation as a story and try to actually include real stories. Take a risk. Have a mitigation plan, but take the risk of including more storytelling, because effective presenters are great storytellers, and anything can be made into a story. I've seen people present on string theory in physics, about as esoteric as you can come up with, and make it a story. Scientists can make it a story, right? Engineers, IT folks, any topic in the world can be made more like a story.